and welcome to Stage to Sofa. Today I am joined by award-winning set designer Alyson Cummins. Alyson has worked at many different opera houses all over Europe and festivals, and her designs are so amazingly imaginative and wonderfully intricate in terms of their attention to detail. She's worked with Opera Holland Park, Royal Opera House and La Scala, to name but a few. And I'm so grateful that she's joining me here today. Thank you so much for joining me, Alyson. How are you doing?
Oh, thanks, Phoebe. I'm delighted to talk to you. Thank you for asking me.
Such a pleasure. How are you now coping with this big transition you found yourself with?
I know it's tough, and it's tough for everybody. I think for everything just to have stopped and for everybody's diaries just to be totally wiped. I had just kind of come out of quite a busy period. So in a way, in the beginning, it was quite nice to be home because I've been traveling a bit. I have a little boy who's keeping us really busy and maybe keeping us sane. I don't know, or the opposite. But he is a toddler, so there's a lot of kind of just running around after him at the moment, which is great, actually. Yeah, he's been keeping me busy, and I have a couple of things that are kind of in the pipeline that I'm kind of able to work on, which is great, and that also kind of helps keep you sane, and hope that, you know, we'll get through all of this and we'll be all working again soon. And you know, I have to kind of remind myself it's not the first time theatres and opera houses have had to close down for pandemics. You know, it's been going, live performance has been going for thousands of years, and there's been lots of this kind of thing happening along the way. So hopefully we can just kind of learn from it, and we'll all be back working again soon.
Completely, and I think it's very true. There has been a history of crazy events that have happened all over the, last 100 years, 200 years. And you're right, the music lives on and theatre lives on. So fingers crossed we'll be back soon. Now, I know your early beginnings, you were an architecture student in Dublin.
Yes.
I'm wondering, how did you make that transition into set design and how did that unfold for you?
It was kind of, I don't know, it was quite strange, and I didn't even think about doing it really in university. Architecture is a really kind of all-consuming course to do. You kind of don't really have a second. So I was really very much in that world, and where I studied, the School of Architecture was kind of like behind all the sports ground on the bigger kind of wider campus of the rest of the university. So we didn't even see anyone else who went to the university. It was just like this tiny little bubble of madness. But it was while I was there, I kind of started to get a little bit interested in theatre mainly. In Dublin at the time, I suppose it's changed now completely, but there wasn't a huge opera presence in Dublin when I was growing up. So it was theatre really, and it was kind of Beckett that I got really interested in at first. And kind of at the same time, I wasn't 100% sure that I was as in love with architecture as everybody else in my class was. It kind of feels really vocational in the way that opera and theatre is actually as well. There's people who were in my class who'd wanted to be an architect from when they were young, you know, and you kind of have to work so hard at it. You have to love it, I think. And I was feeling very conflicted while I was there. You know, and there were bits of it that I did love and I got really passionate about, and it was very up and down. And anyway, after I graduated, I was working in an architect's office, and it was kind of boom time in Ireland, and I don't know, I wasn't really enjoying the actual work that I was doing. So I started just annoying the Abbey Theatre, which is Ireland's national theatre. So I just kept kind of emailing them and ringing them and saying, any chance I can come in and just see what you all do, or could I just hang around for a bit? So they eventually let me come in, which was brilliant. They had a workshop at the time. They don't anymore, actually, but they used to build all their sets in-house. So I was able to go there and just kind of help out. And I was kind of like prepping flats and just, you know, kind of priming them and painting them, not doing any of the skilled work, doing the kind of like schlepping work, but I loved it because I kind of went from sitting at a desk behind a computer to being in this really exciting environment where we're actually making physical things every day. I was exhausted. I remember I had blisters all over my hands from putting Artex on the flats of the trowel, but I still just loved it. It was brilliant. You're meeting really exciting people and working on really exciting shows. And then I kind of got to do some prop making, and it was just, that was it. I had the bug then from then.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing that you found your niche. How then did it develop into opera? So what was your earliest memory of the art form opera?
Well, actually, it was assisting then. So after I was at the Abbey, I went to Motley in London, where it was like a kind of a postgrad course, but it was the most brilliant practical kind of training course that I could have hoped for. And we did, actually, the first thing I suppose I did there, we did the Cunning Little Vixen as a project, which was brilliant. I loved doing that. And that was probably my first introduction to opera, really. And I got to see then opera, obviously, in London. That was the really exciting thing as well about Motley, because there was a lot of theatre and opera practitioners who came in to teach us different things and do different talks, or just to come in and say hello. Where it was based was brilliant. We were in the back of the Theatre Royal on Drury Lane, so you're right there in the middle of everything, and people would just drop in sometimes to see our tutors. Alyson was one of our head tutors, and she obviously did lots of work in opera, so we got to go and see her dress rehearsals sometimes, and we just got to go and see lots of shows. So it was just brilliant, really. And then the first one I worked on was assisting a brilliant designer who sadly died earlier this year, Monica Frawley, in Ireland. So I assisted her for years then back in Dublin. And I got to work, she did beautiful designs for opera. So I got to work with her before designing my own.
Wow, that's so amazing that you've had such it sounds like quite a detailed insight into the opera world, and then you're straight in and, having all these mentors as well that you've been able to work with. It just sounds really, really organic, and that it kind of naturally unfolded for you, which is amazing.
I've been so lucky to work with really amazing people, and often really amazing women along the way. It's been Monica Frawley, and Ray Smith is another designer who does amazing designs for opera too, and theatre. And I've been really lucky to have worked and assisted both of them, and they're my friends now, and they're wonderful, wonderful people, as well as being brilliant designers.
Yeah, I think it's so amazing how these working relationships unfold and then become friendships. I think it's very good for young people starting out in the industry to make those connections and not be afraid of them and go for it, because as you are an example of, it can work out to the best possible outcome. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm wondering now, there's a lot of singers and artists that don't necessarily see the process of set design. We kind of just get there and it's all ready for us to go, and we go ahead with our show that we've been working on in rehearsals. How is that process? Can you talk us through how it unfolds from concept right the way through to staging?
Sure. So yeah, it can start years often before the show actually is staged, but oftentimes a director or a producer will approach you to check your availability, or if you've worked together before, often they'll just ask you to do the show, which is great. It's really lovely to work with people that you've worked with before, because you already have a kind of a rapport and a shortcut. But then, saying that, it's also really exciting working with new people too, because you're kind of feeling each other out, and it's exciting to kind of go on that adventure with a new person as well. So usually in the beginning, you are just kind of taking time to listen to the opera, or and read the libretto and read the play if it's a play that you're doing, and it's really kind of important to really savor that first experience that you have with it, and kind of note down your thoughts. So I'll try and make myself do some little sketches and write down any kind of thoughts I have, or any kind of visual clues that have kind of come up along the way as well. If it's reminding me of an artist or a photograph or a film, anything like that, it's all really helpful. I kind of think you're looking for clues all the time to kind of put a final image together, or final picture together. So then what usually happens after that is you and the director are kind of having this constant back and forth, which is great, where you're swapping images and having chats about different things, or talking about films or artists. And that bit's really, really exciting, because it's kind of the moment where the show is really kind of beginning to take shape. Often in opera as well, you're kind of talking about when and where to set something as well, and that bit can be really exciting too, and kind of researching into different time periods or different places and what was going on, and just trying to build a really kind of full picture of the world that you're going to set the opera in. And then from there, I'll kind of simultaneously do storyboards and make a model. So the storyboards are where you kind of go through the opera or the play bit by bit, and kind of action by action, really. So you're kind of testing things like exits and entrances, and if you've got staircases, that kind of thing, if it all works. And then the model is literally, it kind of really seems so antiquated now, but it's such a brilliant tool and a brilliant way of working, really. But it's just literally cardboard and glue, and I mean, you can get things 3D printed now, so that kind of brings us a little bit more into the 21st century. But it's then a brilliant tool and a way to discuss the design with the director as it's evolving. And I think it's really important, especially in the early stages, not to be too precious about the stuff you put in there. So I often try and just make things quite quickly out of bits of scrap card and stuff as well, because you don't want to feel too attached to something just because it took you ages to make it. That can often happen if you've built this like really beautiful, intricate like staircase or something. You don't want to lose it then because it took like 3 days to make or something. But yeah, so I think it's really important to not be too precious about what goes in there in the beginning, and just be really open to those kind of early discussions and early reactions of the director as well. And then, so you keep working like that together for a while, and at some point then you have a white card, which is a sketch model. I never actually do them as a white card because I find it very difficult to think about something in such an abstract way without any color or texture. So I would just call it a sketch model, really. So you go and you show that normally to the producer and the production manager and everybody who's going to work with you to make it happen. So that's usually, budget is usually the big thing at that meeting, whether we can afford it or not. And often loads of it depends on a really great production manager as well, because sometimes you might not be able to afford something, but a production manager will have a great idea of how something could be cobbled together to make this or that, or you swap something out. And I've been really fortunate to work with some brilliant production managers who, you know, they can just make anything out of nothing. It's kind of magic what they can do sometimes. Yeah, so then from there, it's just about developing the final model. And unless something has gone kind of majorly wrong with the sketch model, it's usually basically kind of just the sketch model with more detail, and the finish is kind of finalized. And that's what you then give to the builders, and they use that then to build from, and the scenic artists take the pieces as well to kind of make them big. It's always amazing, that moment as well, to kind of walk into the workshop and see what they've done and how they've done it. You know, you've got your 1:25 model, and then you walk in and it's this huge thing right there. So that's always nerve-wracking actually, as well as really exciting. And that the kind of set building usually happens in and around or just before rehearsals. So you kind of fast forwarded, it can often be maybe a year after you've started working on it initially. And then kind of simultaneously you're doing costumes usually as well. So you'd be working again in a similar way with the director, back and forth with images and drawings. And you'd usually, what I would normally do is make kind of like a mood board for each character of different kind of picture references. Because often, unless you're getting your costumes completely made from scratch, there'll be rentals or stuff you buy. So often it's not going to be maybe exactly your drawing, but if you've kind of a mood board of the overall character, then you've got a feel for who that character is. So you can kind of mix and match a little bit. And yeah, so kind of from there, then you're into rehearsals, and you kind of then swap the solitary relationship that you and the director kind of had together, and it opens up into this much bigger thing, which is always a brilliant moment as well. It's really exciting to kind of then get into the room, and you've got the first day and everybody's working on making it happen, and then usually props go into overdrive at that point as well. So you'll have done prop lists and again reference pages for your props. And then the stage management are again kind of amazing people who can get kind of props made and sourced from usually not much money. Yeah, so it's kind of all of that really exciting stuff that kind of that all goes together to build the show. Rehearsals usually are about 4 weeks, and then you're into a technical rehearsal, which I'm sure everybody then knows all about.
Yeah, oh gosh, wow, what a journey. It's like you said, it's such a long process that these singers, oh well, particularly, you know, me as an artist as well, I would never have known it takes that amount of time to create that whole finished product, if you like. And it must be so surreal for you walking in that first moment when the stage builders have created something that came from your head. I
Yeah,
can't even fathom. It must be so exciting.
it's
And then
really,
see it come to life as a world on stage when this show happens. Wow, such an
yeah,
amazing experience, I imagine.
no, it
I'm
is.
also thinking, in terms of all the wonderful productions that you have done so far, what has been your favourite set and why?
Ooh, that's tough. Um, God, you can kind of love different shows for different reasons as well. If you've just had like a really nice time working on them as well, it can be really sad leaving a team as well, because you walk away on opening night and the show is still going. So it feels quite weird, because that's their kind of, everyone's celebrating that it's the opening night and they've started kind of their big journey. But I'm like, oh, bye everyone, you know.
It must be
It
really
can feel
strange.
it can feel a little bit sad, that moment. God, favorite sets. I absolutely loved Zaza that I did for Opera Holland Park, which felt like a really, really true kind of collaboration with the director, Marie Lambert, who's a brilliant French director. And I loved working on that. And that was my first time working at Holland Park as well. So that was really kind of an exciting, really exciting moment for me too. It's such a big stage and such an important company. And actually kind of obviously more important, such a lovely company to work for. They're really, really brilliant. They've got brilliant people working with them, and I've loved working with them over the years. So that's been a favourite for lots of reasons, I suppose. I did a show in Iceland that was really exciting to do. That kind of was just really surreal as well. Working with Greg as the lovely director as well, and just working in that amazing building was really exciting. And I suppose my first show on the Abbey stage meant a lot to me as well growing up. That's my national theatre, and getting to design a show for the Abbey kind of main stage was, yeah, a really big moment for me. And my mum came with me to the opening and the president was there and everything like that. So it's like, that will always be really special to me as well.
That's so lovely. It's so lovely to have that support, especially from home. It makes a huge difference. Now, in terms of the art form as a whole moving forwards, Alyson, how do you see opera moving forwards in this digital time we're in, and also the other side of these challenging times? Because right now, you know, as you've said, it's a very difficult situation. Everything's sort of calmed down quite a lot because we're not able to go to theatres. How do you see it evolving and moving forwards?
Oh, it's hard. I think it's a question for everybody really at the moment. Not only about kind of maybe developing audiences and keeping audiences that are already interested in that art form, already interested in that. Hopefully they're going to come back when shows open. But I also think opera and theatre, it's really important that they start to develop and nurture other audiences. And newer audiences, younger people, and more diverse audiences as well. I think that's really important. And it's something that's especially topical at the moment, obviously. But I think opera and theatre have a lot of questions to answer and issues to look at surrounding diversity and the lack of diversity in both areas, really. And I think companies are really starting to address that, and did start to address it, I suppose, in the last year or so. But it's probably not enough, and more needs to be done, I think. And maybe this is a really great time for companies to take stock, actually, and start to look at all of that. And then for audiences as well, and for us people who work in it, in that art form, to also ask questions and ask about hiring policies and encourage that as well, encourage diversity and encourage hiring younger people also, from, you know, a variety of backgrounds. I think the onus is on all of us actually as well to kind of talk about that too. And I think it could be really great if this kind of strange kind of fallow period was a time that everybody could look at that and then start to really make changes once things start up again. Because I think the audiences will follow as well. You know, if the people on stage are reflecting the audience, that's the best thing possible.
Completely, 100% agree. And yeah, let's hope that this time is actually a time to awaken rather than sit still. I think you're very much right. We need to be speaking about it. So thank you for your answer. Now, in terms of obstacles that you've faced, Alyson, what has been the obstacle that you have faced that's the biggest obstacle you faced to get to the point in the career that you're currently at?
That's hard as well. Obstacles. I suppose starting out, the thing I really struggled with when I left Motley first is the amount of people who want you to work for free. It's really very difficult, and I know that is something that affects everybody across the board, performers and creatives and everyone really. It's very, very difficult, and you can lose your sense of self-worth, actually, I think, if you do it for too long. And then you kind of get lured in by this idea of profit share, which is just another word of, for working for free. And for me, starting out, I think I found that the biggest obstacle, to be honest. You know, you expect maybe one or two shows once you leave that you might have to do just to kind of build up a portfolio. But I ended up actually going back to Dublin because I found London was worse for it. Well, this is, look, when was that? 2007. So 13 years ago. So it may be different. I'm not sure now. But in Dublin, it's not that they were paying huge amounts, but they were paying, you know. So I was able to kind of do jobs starting out, but they weren't expecting anybody to work for free. Everyone was being paid on the team. So I think that's a huge thing for everybody. And that's also to do with access as well into the industry too. And that's something that really affects everybody. And maybe this is also a time to kind of address those issues as well, that we shouldn't expect people to work for free.
Definitely. And I think, like we've said, now is the time, hopefully, to think about these things and make a positive change out of this horrific situation we've all been faced with. Hopefully, some positive change comes out of it. Now, moving forwards, what advice do you have for the next generation of set designers?
Oh my God. Advice. I don't know if I'm in the position to be giving out advice.
Oh, you're fabulous. Look at the career you've got. I disagree.
Advice. Oh man, I don't really know. I suppose you have to work really, really hard. But then I suppose the thing that I sometimes think can be bad is you can be encouraged to kind of give over your entire life and be expected to work 24/7 sometimes. And I think it's really good to be strict and have a working day in a way as well, so that you can start at a time and finish at a time. But then that's always been how I've worked, and I know that doesn't work for lots of people as well. Motley was a really good example of that because there was 11 of us in there, and I've always worked better in the morning, always. So I'd rather get up early, you know, set my alarm if I had to, if I'm in total dire straits, for like 5 a.m. and start working. And I know there's other people who are night owls and like to work into the night, but that's never been me. So it was actually brilliant to be in a room with 11 other people and see all the different ways people work as well. So I don't know if I can give any real constructive advice other than maybe just try and kind of know your kind of boundaries and limits. And if you're working for yourself, it can be really difficult to do that sometimes, but like you have to carve time out to have a personal life also, and to have time for yourself too.
Yeah, it's funny, you can accidentally sort of put that to the bottom of the list when you're so busy doing everything else. So I think that's great. Great
Such a
advice.
social job as well, and normally everybody you're working with is so lovely and people become your friends anyway, so that line gets blurred. And that's the brilliant thing about working in this industry as well, is that it is such a social industry. But yeah, it's important to kind of give yourself a bit of time as well.
Definitely. Totally agree. Now, in terms of if you could go back to a specific moment in your life, be it personal or career, what would it be and why?
Phoebe, you were asking hard questions.
Didn't say it would be easy.
Oh wow. If I could go back to any time, I don't know, I might do Motley again. I loved it so much. I had such a great time. We didn't sleep much, but It was brilliant, and I met the most lovely people. And the thing that happens always is that everybody scatters. After everybody goes back to maybe where they're from or doing different things, and it's really hard to get the 11 people back in a room together at the same time. So that would be lovely. I would love to do that again. I'll say that.
I like that. That's good. Going back to your youth, always good. What do you think is your favourite thing about what you do? Why do you do it? And what is your biggest thing that you love about it?
I might give you two things, if that's all right.
Please do.
I absolutely love the work of it in itself. I love when you start on a new opera or a play, you get completely thrown into a new world, and you get to just kind of live in that world. And I've always loved research and looking into all of that kind of stuff. So I absolutely love that bit. And then I suppose the other part of it that I love, it's generally the people. People who work in opera and theatre tend to be, I don't know, in my opinion, the best people. You have a lot of fun. Well, you tend to have a lot of fun, which is really important, I think, because you do work long hours and, all of that kind of stuff. So it's really important to enjoy what you're doing. And generally, I feel like I've been really lucky, and I've got to work with some really amazing people who have become my friends as well. So I think it's made up of a lot of really, really wonderful people, and the work itself. And I mean, it's such a joy to get to do that as a job. I've always kind of in the back of my mind, I don't know if all people who work in theatre or all freelancers just think of, but you always wonder, oh, when am I going to have to get a real job, and I worry about that, obviously. But I feel like I've been really blessed and really lucky to have got to do the stuff that I've been able to do.
Amazing. I love that so much. Now, Alyson, we've come to our final question. What piece of advice would you give to an 18-year-old Alyson?
Man, Phoebe, what piece of advice? Actually, this is something I only even realised a few years ago, so it would probably apply to a 30-year-old Alyson even. But you realise actually quite late that everyone is just kind of muddling through. Everyone's kind of blagging. And not blagging in a bad way. I mean, that's just life, everyone is just kind of working it out as they go along. But I was under the impression that everyone older than me, or who I thought was better than me at different things, that everyone knew exactly what they were doing at every point in time. But I think it's really freeing when you realize actually no one really knows what they're doing, and everyone's just trying to do their best. And that's very, very freeing, I think, when you realize that, because that's what you're doing, but you assume no one else is doing that,
I totally get that. 100%. It's really, really something that I think you come to terms with as you get older. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so, so much, Alyson. You've been such a joy to have here, and I've loved speaking with you. Thank you for joining me on Stage to Sofa.
Thank you.